Productivity. Gladiator.
And with me on the show today, I have Paul McFadden, who's the head of 0 Point Leadership. So let's start with employees. Paul, what would you say for employees that are really, when it comes to work-life balance, what are things that you can do as an employee to make a difference? What comes to mind for you?
How do you define work-life balance? Like, what is it? Because everybody's got this own version of what a work-life balance looks like. Like for me, I look at it as life balance. Because there's work, and work is necessary in order for us to pay the bills, support our families, all the things that we feel like we need to do to make us feel successful and fulfilled, right? And then life is this experience that we live. Now, some of us allow our jobs to kind of overtake life, and the job becomes life. Versus life being life, and job is just something that you do to help you kind of feed into those pleasures and those things that you want to enjoy.
I love what you said about finding that balance and articulating what it is for you, because it also is like, people generally don't come for advice on work-life balance because they're hoping to work more. Generally, the part of this that comes into the conversation is it's the life part of work-life balance that they're missing. If you have too much on your plate, the other reason people tend to be late is because there's so much they've got to do, and there's always going to be so much. So having that conversation with your boss also about, you should have a touch point every once in a while with the boss about, here's all the things that I'm working on, and understanding the priorities. Let's shift gears now to the kind of frontline supervisors and mid-level managers who you might have a level or a couple of levels underneath you. And how do you affect that, that work-life balance culture just for your team specifically?
If you're a leader and you don't have control over your own life balance, how do you expect your employees, your staff, your teams to have control over their life balance? So you have to really kind of emulate that yourself first.
I also have people underneath me and have worked in supervising. It's that there's all these different levels, but one of the things is if you acknowledge them as a person in the beginning of every email. Yeah. So you say, "Hi, Paul," and then I need you to do this, 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 and this, but you acknowledge them as a person first, not just as your cog. That kind of speaks to some of that culture we were talking about. So that actually means a lot when you acknowledge the person before you ask or tell for something. Say that again.
Yeah.
Because that's a big point.
Right? Let me say it again. So the pain of not changing has to be greater than the pain of changing. And if that is true, then we will change. If the pain of changing is worse than the pain of not changing, guess what? We're not going to change.
It's hard to change a habit. There's all kinds of research on that as well. And so if you fall into the habit of not a good work-life balance, then that is the thing that perpetually builds up and builds up like pressure in a container. It builds, and then you get to what we were talking about earlier with now I got to quit because I got to let all this steam and this pressure go. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you build the habits around exercising regularly and like planning your week, planning your balance, right? Do you know that there's going to be balance? If you get into that habit, it keeps the pressure down. There are things you can't control, but make sure you do the things that you can control. And if you do that, it's going to be better. Even if it's not great, it's going to be better.
Absolutely.
So do that stuff.
Absolutely.
One of the things that people get, there's a feeling of overwhelm around work-life balance because it feels like it's so much. And that saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, right? So if you're taking 1 or 2 steps, or you just, this month, I'm going to do this, and you do that one thing, and that'll help turn the ship just a little bit and then a little bit more. And so for some folks, it's the momentum of getting started is really helpful.
How do I improve my work-life balance? Well, what do you do for fun? Maybe do that more intentionally. Maybe you like to see movies. Maybe go to the movies twice a month or once a month. Maybe it's having date night with your significant other, or whatever it is. Maybe it's having a night with your kids. Maybe it's all sitting down for dinner on Sunday night and having dinner together. Yeah, it gets harder as they become teenagers. But these things that we kind of to do, but that bring us joy, those are little things we can do now, get back to doing so that we feel like we have a little bit more balance than what we may believe we have. Because when all we see is work, 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 work. That's a song, right? You know, when work.
Yeah, true. There's a lot of songs about work, Paul. Let's say if we start down that keyword. Yep.
Productivity. Gladiator.